Hello and welcome back to Hudson Auto Films, and today you join me on a very windy, rainy, grey English day, and well, you guessed it, we are back working on the Nova. In last week's episode, we rebuilt the main portion of the Alpha race engine that will be living in the back of the Nova, and well, this week we are fully rebuilding and restoring the turbo setup. So by the end of today's episode, we should have a fully rebuilt Alpha turbo racing engine ready to go in this thing. So lots to do. I'm gonna get out of the rain, so let's do this. So here she is, our freshly rebuilt Alpha race engine. Now, this certainly polarised opinions last week, but the great thing is you guys just get to wait and see what happens. But whilst that's gleaming, our turbo setup is looking pretty crusty and tired. And without all of these up to spec, then our engine is nothing to write home about. So let's make a start bringing these wonderful parts back to their former glory. Kicking things off is the original oil sump from the 1.5 engine. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, but this was full of oily mud. Like, I'm not seeing anything quite like it. It was a miracle that engine ran at all. But anyway, with that in mind, we are not going to be sparing with the brake cleaner. This needs to be gleaming, free of any residue, and then we can get it nicely painted up and onto our new engine. So after hitting the oil sump with about 1,000 litres of brake cleaner and a nice run over with the wire wheel, it was looking pretty good. The only trouble was the original cork gasket wasn't budging. So time to hit it with the big guns and send it on its way.
Safety gear.
Ah, whoops. Which one should I put on first?
All of them.
Okay.
Beautiful. Safety first.
Safety first. And with one last coat of brake cleaner for good luck, the oil pan was looking pretty good. So with the help of some of the Nova's old wiring harness and my engine crane, it's time to get this thing up in the air and give it a fresh coat of paint. So I'm definitely in agreement with you guys. I think the engine definitely needs a secondary colour, and I've decided to go for black. I know that's not particularly imaginative, but I think it will tie in with the clean, space-age nature of the silver. And yeah, there's a lot of Larry options we could have gone for, but I just want this to look really smart. And after a few healthy coats of paint, the oil pan is looking a whole lot better. Certainly not brand new, but it's come a long way in an hour's work. That's going to look really great on the engine. Next up is the turbo manifold. This is a really lovely piece of kit. A huge upgrade from the original 1.5 manifold we had, which unfortunately did get cut off. It's pretty good, it's just got surface rust all over it, so I'm going to do my best to knock as much of that off as possible. Then we can give it a well-deserved fresh coat of paint. And with the engine stand at the ready, the turbo manifold was looking a whole lot better. So after a quick cleanup, it was time to paint. Now I'm using VHT paint, which is good for about 600 degrees. It's a sort of awkward paint to use because you lay it on and it looks great, but as it dries it really does thin out. So you've got to do a few coats really to get proper coverage and not just have nasty spots showing through. paint laid on really well, and as you can see, it's starting to look really sharp. But anyway, as I mentioned, this can be a bit tricky in the drying, so we'll check back in on this manifold a little bit later on. Okay, whilst we let those dry, it's time to hit the pulleys. Now, we should have done this to begin with because we really want these on as soon as possible so we can get the engine timed, and then that will allow us to get everything else on. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing it this way. This really was just silly. This was actually a little bit before we realised we had access to all of that lovely wiring, which meant we could hang these things up and get both sides. But anyway, as you can see, we're evolving, so that is good. We left everything to cook, and a few hours later, they were ready to go on. This is an exciting moment, a very small win, but it's exciting. We are getting the first moving parts onto the outside of the engine and getting the first sense of our colour scheme, the black and silver, and I think it looks pretty cool. So we put our pulleys on, but...
Pulleys are on the dowels they're supposed to be on, in the right locations. One's reversed compared to the other. Got it at TDC, as you can see, the homemade TDC indicator. It's telling me number one's at TDC. The cams are in a position where the two notches, each one of these pulleys has two notches, are slightly away from vertical in towards the centre of the engine, which is what the manual says they should be. The only problem we have is we don't have the covers, have the access holes, the viewing window to see where the mark should be. So we're estimating that this position before the cam starts actuating and this position locked in between two cam phases are where the cam should be. It looks natural. It looks about right according to the diagrams, so that's where we're going to set our timing. And luckily, as it's a non-interference engine, if we get it wrong, no valve's going to hit pistons no matter what we do.
So we were roughly where we needed to be. Now, if you know about these engines, you might be a little bit confused, as typically these are interference engines. But in this case, because we're using such a combination of parts, including the racing parts, which have very deep pockets on the pistons, we now don't have a interference engine. The combination of the pistons and the 1.7 heads gives us a lot of space that we wouldn't typically have. So yeah, quite a unique situation. And whilst we're on this topic, some of you are concerned that this combination might lead the engine to not start at all. So earlier in the day, we actually did a test to measure the compression ratio.
Our idea is measure the combustion chamber volume. We could do it off the engine, but we're going to do it on the engine because we don't have to worry about any clearances, volumes, head gasket, and estimate all that. We can do it actually here. So put it in through the spark plug hole, piston at TDC, valves closed, we'll see what it is. Just have to remember to count 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40. That's 1.5.
Compression ratio calculator.
Yeah, you could do it manually, with using maths and your brain, or you could use a compression ratio calculator. Just plug the numbers in, and it comes up with a compression ratio with the piston pockets, with the cylinder head volume, all big volumes in there. What do we think it was going to be? Well, it's 8.33. Not too bad for a turbo motor. So we're happy.
Before we go any further, there is something I wanted to talk to you guys about. These days, the internet is kind of like a crowded street. Most people are fine, but there's always someone out there who's wanting to pick your pocket. One of the sneakiest tricks right now is fake online shops. They look totally legit, they'll take your payment, but they'll disappear before your order even ships. But that is where today's video partner, NordVPN, comes in. Their Threat Protection Pro feature actually warns you if you're about to land on a fake website before you even go near the checkout. And what's great is that it is super simple. One click and your connection is encrypted, your data is secure, and you can browse completely privately. And this even goes if you're on sketchy public Wi-Fi. Plus, with their Threat Protection Pro, it will automatically block malware and phishing links. So if you want to stay safe online, go to nordvpn.com/Hudson. And another great thing about NordVPN is if you find you're not into it, they have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it completely risk-free. Again, that is nordvpn.com/Hudson to get an exclusive deal of an extra 4 months on a 2-year plan. Keep your data protected, your browsing private, and your online life secure with NordVPN. So visit nordvpn.com/Hudson. There is a link on the screen and it is also in the description, so go check them out. Anyway, now with all of that out of the way, it is time to continue the assembly and reconditioning of this engine. So while Steve continued to focus on the pulleys, tensioners, belts, that sort of thing, I turned my attention to the jewel of the build, our turbocharger. After taping up in probably the most ugly and inefficient way possible, I hit it with the wire wheel and cleaned it up. This needed to have the same treatment as the exhaust. This was going to get incredibly hot, so the VHT paint was the only thing appropriate. Now, I think in theory this is going to look very mean, a black turbo, so I'm pretty excited. Well, this is looking very clean. It's sort of hard to get the whole picture right now, obviously without the front of the turbo on and it being covered in tape and tissue, but yeah, this is going to be cool. With the front of the turbo in mind, or the turbine housing, as it's properly known as, I wanted to just polish this up. I didn't want to paint it. I thought this could just be a really nice standout point. It's aluminium, so I hit it with the wire wheel as much as I could and just wanted to see if I could bring it back to life. And after a little bit of elbow grease, look at that. That is looking pretty smart. This is certainly going to be a very good looking setup and I can't wait to put this all together. But right now, paint is drying and we need to focus on something more important, which is the backplate of the engine. Now, this houses things like the oil pump, the distributor and the oil filter. We are going to use an original setup. Obviously, the race engine had a dry sump setup and lots of other gizmos, but we are just going to use the original one off the 1.5. It's a lot more simple and for our usage, it makes more sense. But as you can see, it is very crusty. So we need to strip this thing down and bring everything back to life.
Oh.
Oh, crikey. Wait.
Distributor.
Crikey.
A little bit warm. Should we see if it turns? Oh, look, it turns.
Magic.
What about this end? Ooh.
Still smoking a bit.
Bearings.
Was it smoking from down here? One distributor down, one oil pump to go. But one thing that is for sure, I'm not letting this crusty backplate go anywhere near our nice shiny engine. So we need to get this cleaned up, but not before making one more large mess.
I know you want to do tight before you lose time. The raw strength is if you turn it, it's not.
Now, with the backplate fully stripped, it's time to clean this very, very crusty part up.
Oh, foam dot.
I want to go now.
We get the brush. You give it a stiff one.
Oh yes, please. Got quite a wide spray burr.
It has. It's got a. Oh, it's dissolving shit. Look.
Oh yeah, jeez.
You give it some scrubbing. It would be like. Whoa.
Oh, the smell of that.
Oh, your t-shirt is now dirty.
Oh no.
It's officially dirty.
But you can I'll get a clean one at HudsonAutoFilms.com.
Buy them now.
This is where a water supply would be good. In case some of you have been a little bit triggered about the sheer volume of brake cleaner and now engine degreaser that we're using in this episode, that is because my barn doesn't have a water supply. It's literally just a shed in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere, no mains electricity, and yeah, certainly no water supply. So it makes everything that little bit harder.
Here's the reliever. Oh, reliever. Was it here? Dribbling away. Ooh, you're going with all great guns with that, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
Get it in every orifice.
A bit more. Yeah. Rinse a bit.
No, it's all right. It's still working.
Oh.
There we go. There, I think that's all right. We call that Nova soup.
Oh, delicious. Lovely. Well, that backplate looks a whole lot better. That is 30 plus years of gunk and debris gone, which the engine certainly wasn't benefiting from. Wow, that rhymes. I don't know how this happens every week. Anyway, time for a little bit of paint to bring this up to the standard of the rest of the parts. Well, that backplate was a battle. Yeah, that thing has not been touched or cleaned since probably the early 80s, so a job well done. But after doing that and cleaning up a few more bits and painting the final bit of exhaust, here we had our final lineup of Turbo Alpha parts. Just a few hours ago, these were crusty and ugly, and look at them now. They look great. These are going to look so good on the engine. And it's worth mentioning the backplate got one last clean up, especially on all the internal areas where all the oil is running through. You can never be too careful. And in that same vein, we also took a slightly closer look at the oil strainer.
I'll give you a little insight. This is the old school oil strainer, and there's likely to be a lot of crap in there. So I could try and flush it through, but I think what's better is to take the oil strainer off, just uncrimp it, clean it out, and put it back on again. Even just looking in the gap there, that's full of crud. Yeah, there's a bit in there.
Delicious.
You taste it?
Yes, please.
Back together again.
Nice and clean.
All scraped out. Clang.
Nice.
Good. There's only two. Yeah.
Now everything was nicely painted and cleaned up, we could finally start reassembling everything. Kicking things off with, yes, just another pulley, but this is a big one. As Steve put the timing belts on and got everything tensioned, it means we can actually now turn the engine over and the whole thing communicates. Look at that. This might not seem like a big deal, but it is. This is also a good moment to mention that these are not our final timing belts. We weren't sure which ones we'd actually need due to the combination of parts, so those are our old ones off the 1.5, but now we know which ones we need, we have got new ones on order. Now the turning assembly was all communicating with each other and everything was good, we could focus on getting some of the proper meaty parts on. Kicking things off with our freshly refreshed backplate. But as we were cleaning up the surface ready for the new gasket, we spotted something.
Let's check the 1.7 out.
We've just found something that could have been pretty catastrophic. As you can see, this is blanked off. Now, this usually would be our main oil feed, but because this is the racing block and they were pumping in oil from here, they weren't using the traditional oil pump, they blanked this off. So if we hadn't have caught that, we'd have got no oil to the main bearings.
Nothing, yeah.
Nothing. It would have gone bang very, very quickly. So, time to undo this.
Let's hope it comes out. Oh,
Ooh, crusty.
yeah.
Whoa!
Like that's the seal. That's the sealant.
Lovely.
Loads
Oh,
of sealant.
inhale it in.
Hopefully beyond that, we can see into the main gallery.
Hello.
This is older than Charlie. It is, actually.
Right, is this going to be awkward with this oil thing?
Anything's
Rubber.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't think this one's the right one.
Hold on. There you go.
Ah, much better. Almost, you need another sort of half inch.
Find the hole.
It's a bit tight.
I think one of them was.
Ah,
It's just like that. It's happy on the crank.
John?
She's on.
Yeah.
See my hole.
We thought we caught something important, and after fitting this, we realised we actually don't need it. This is only needed if you're fitting this to an Alpha gearbox, but we're fitting it to a Beetle gearbox, so in and out, good practice. But now we have a fun part. We are now properly sealing the engine for the first time. It's time to put our nice, shiny new oil sump on. Now, sometimes when you've been working for many, many hours across many, many weeks, you make silly mistakes. And if you've caught this one, then well done. Because after staring right at this engine, we missed something very, very important. That would have ended very, very badly.
I remember reading it out before, but now I forgot what it was.
Did you pull the paper out?
No, did you pull the paper out?
No.
I've still got a piece of paper in there. You said
No.
leave it in. That was tempting fate, wasn't it?
No, wait.
Right, let's have a look. Can we see it anywhere? No, we can't.
No way.
It's still in there. You can probably see it through the stump here.
Cock.
Let's get the A4 sheet of paper out. There it is.
Hey!
Let's take it out. What's it say? Happy Back to the Future Day.
It says, oh, there is actually some writing on it.
Oh yeah. Ah, surprise. Right, do you want to check there's nothing else in there then? No hamster.
Oh, wait, there is. There is.
Oh, I found something. Hold on. Let's get it out. Let's get it out. There it is.
What is it?
There.
Ah. Pack of Marlboro cigarettes.
I thought you'd given up.
And for any of you who are concerned, don't worry, I'm not a smoker, but long-term viewers will remember about a year ago I restored a cigarette vending machine on the channel, so that is where those came from. But anyway, all things aside, that was a mistake that could have been very catastrophic, so it's good we realised there was a piece of paper in there. But next up, a very important part, it is time to fit the rear main seal.
Get it sort of
And conveniently, we had a lid which allowed us to perfectly slot it over the lid and onto its mounting point.
made for it.
Made for it. Perfect.
It's made for it. and seal installed.
And with the backplate and the oil sump and all the other supporting parts fitted, it was time to get this finely sealed engine back on the stand, and then we can start fitting all of the exciting turbo parts.
That'll do.
This engine was really starting to take shape, and I have to say I really do like the silver and black colour scheme. It looks just how I wanted it to. Smart, like a spaceship, and yeah, I think with the turbo setup it's going to look very mean. Olio!
Or is it Olito? Olito. Olito.
Actually, before that excitement, let's put the water pump on. Before we forget.
Hey, BGA.
Look at that.
Let's put that way.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, I know.
Right, let's just get it to position.
What's a perfect colour match?
Still
Wash out and use it again.
yeah. Turn it to it.
Now, with the water pump out the way, it is time to focus on the turbo setup, and that is not a nice, shiny new part. That is our inlet manifold, and the reason that's not nice and shiny is because we need to make some modifications. As you can see, one side is detachable and the other side is solid. Well, we need to make the other side detachable as well, as we'd like to be able to lift the central piece in and out, and that is because we need to try a few different methods of fuel delivery. So having this portion easily changeable would be very helpful. So we need to make a small incision, and then we can get this nicely painted and fitted onto the engine. Now our inlet was in the right arrangement, it was time to give everything a good clean up, get rid of all of the scrappy bits of metal and get it painted. Our inlet manifolds are now looking great, and whilst those dry we can crack on and get going with the exhaust. If you're wondering, this will be coming off again. You guys probably won't see it, but that's why we're only using one bolt on each and we haven't got the exhaust gaskets. Right now we're just checking everything communicates. And well, it's lucky we did that, as something has just come to light that could completely derail this and require us to do a lot of dismantling. That is where the oil filter comes out on the standard setup, and it completely clashes with the turbo manifold. Well, this isn't good.
Small clearance issue.
So we obviously used the backplate from either the 1.7 or the 1.5 because that seemed sensible, but there is a key difference with the race backplate, and that is the oil filter. The whole lot is blanked off. Obviously it was running the dry sump setup, but it means now we put the turbo manifold on, it's clashing badly.
It's no room for an oil filter, no room for an oil filter housing either. The race plate, all cut away and welded up. This one, big clearance issue. So we have to find a different way to get the oil in and out, or fit this one. It's a bit of a bugger.
So we were discussing, put a plate on this and then pump the oil
Different way.
a different way. I mean, there's The centimetre?
There is, and if we get that thread out of there and put a blanking plug in and do things a little bit differently, it's possible. Then that's what this does.
Yeah. So this wasn't good. We could obviously take the backplate off and put the racing one on, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to prioritise the original one as it allowed us to use our original oil pump and all of that sort of thing, and yeah, this just wasn't ideal. So we needed to find a way to pump the oil out and filter it in a different way. The trouble was we had such tight space limitations that this was going to be tricky. So as mentioned, the race setup had a dry sump setup and it pumped the oil out of the engine to an external filter, which is this bad boy. So we need to do a similar thing. And after lots of pondering, we've decided that essentially we are going to completely blank off where the original oil filter came out of. We are going to then pull oil out of that top piece there and then filter it and pump it back in there. But that would require us to properly block off where the current oil filter fits, which is easier said than done. We also need to properly block the oil passages that lead to that filtration point. Again, that's not particularly easy. So we took the exhaust off so we could take a better look. The first thing we tried to do is remove the threaded portion that allows you to attach the oil filter. This is already clashing with the turbo setup, and if it's removable, that would be great, so we could actually put a plate flush on the housing. But after lots of attempts, it turns out that this isn't removable, so we would have to cut this so it was flush again with the housing. But we also needed to block that oil galley. So begins some proper backyard engineering. Uh-oh, is that JB Weld? Yes, it is. But don't worry too much, there is a proper plan in place, which will make sense as we get through it. But essentially the first thing is we need to fill that oil galley, one of two oil galleys by the way, with the JB Weld, and then using that stick that you saw a minute ago, turn the engine upside down, push that in, and that will allow all of the JB Weld to fall to the point that we need it to. Then we can cut that threaded portion off, flush with the JB Weld, and have blocked it off. Then we can put a blanking plate on top of it, so we'll have a chemical seal and a mechanical seal. Now, I don't know if this makes sense right now, so you're just going to have to sort of wait and see and trust the shade tree mechanic process. So the JB Weld was in, and now it's time to insert our very high-tech leveling device, turn the engine up on its side, and then all the JB Weld will fall exactly to the point that we want it, and it will set hard. Next up, it is time to go back to our inlet manifolds, get those fitted, get the exhaust fitted, and continue the turbo build-up, as it's very important we now establish if there's going to be any more issues so we can deal with them. So as we aren't using the traditional carbs, we don't need these pins coming out, so we need to remove them so we can actually put bolts going into the block. So how hard would this be? As always, it turned out to be pretty hard, but with a combination of welding and double nutting, we eventually got them all off.
There she goes. Welding.
Now the one bites the dust. Do not touch that, it's hot.
That's flipping hot. Yay.
Oh fuck. There she goes. And now we can crack on with putting the inlet manifold on, finally. Now I do have some nice new silicone pipe on the way which will go between all four of these. However, right now I'm just using the crusty old ones. So again, this is just for reference. We just need to see if we're going to have any issues and gauge the setup. All of this will be fine-tuned and done even better when we're actually trying to fire this thing up in a couple of weeks' time. We had a little thought about an easy way to create a mechanical block off for our oil filter. Obviously we had the JB weld in and we talked about making a plate, but what happens if we could take advantage of that threaded piece which allows you to put the oil filter on, and actually made our blank off plate out of an oil filter?
That's going to be the top.
After a bit of trimming, we had quite a nice plate. Now this is very thick and it also has a rubber seal on it. Obviously the only issues are we've got those holes, but they can easily be filled.
Yeah.
Well, isn't this a proper shade tree solution? But with all jokes aside, this will work perfectly. It takes advantage of the thread, it's a perfect thickness, and it'll seal everything up just right. But anyway, back to assembly. With the inlet manifolds on, it is really coming together. But it's time for the big moment, the turbo. It seems like a good time to mention, never ask me to wrap your Christmas presents, it won't go well. But look at that. Bloody hell. This is a big moment. The turbo is on the car. Again, I know the gasket's not on and, it's not fired up, it's not spinning, but who cares? This is coming together. Anyway, a few more little bits to put on and then we basically have our turbo setup built. As you can tell, I'm concentrating very hard as I can't keep my tongue in my mouth. Everything was on, but there was one key bit missing, the jewel of the whole engine. Now presenting for the very first time, the rebuilt Alpha Turbo race engine. Just a few weeks ago, this was a pile of broken engines, and now it is a monster. This thing looks absolutely crazy. And this engine is going to be the perfect heart for the Nova. But before we wrap things up, there's a few details that I'd like to address that will make all the difference. Kicking off with that distributor. We should have polished this earlier, but yeah, that stood out like a sore thumb. And why not put a cap on? But yeah, the only one I had was red, which now sort of looks like this whole very angry, aggressive engine has a red nose. So yeah, a black one is on order. And now a big part that is clearly missing, the carb. Now this is the original race carb. I'm putting it on for now, but in a few minutes we'll have a proper chat about what is happening with the fuel delivery system. Wow, I cannot believe how far this engine has come in just a couple of weeks. I know this build isn't to everybody's taste, and of course there are ways that are much better and superior to how we've built this, but we're building in a shed, and I hope you guys can be inspired to just try building things for yourself. It doesn't matter what tools you've got, what parts you've got, just try, work with what you've got, and regardless of how it ends up, you will learn a huge amount in the process and have a lot of fun. One slightly annoying thing about building engines is it's never clean. You might do your best to make everything really nice, but when you're assembling it, you'll knock things, oil will go places, so I wanted to have a final cleanup and then pick out one final detail that I know a lot of you guys were very keen on. Pink. Many of you commented this last week, and I totally agree, and it was always part of the plan. We need to make the Alpha logo pop. I tried this very delicate approach with a brush, and well, it didn't really work, But luckily, lying on the workbench was a very old, high heat permanent paint marker. Well, I've already said this, but why not give it one more moment? For the first time properly, with writing and all, our Alpha Turbo race engine. Well, bugger me, that is a Turbo Alpha racing engine built for the Nova. Yes, I know there's a few bits that need finishing. We need to get the proper piping. We need to whip all the exhaust off again anyway to resolve our oil filter issue, but you guys won't have to endure that. That is for us to do behind the scenes. But wow, this looks like a proper engine. Just let's think back to where the engine started off for this car and where even this engine started off, this pile of bits. And yeah, I don't really know what to say. It just looks awesome. One thing which has been sort of tricky for me is paint discipline. And I know that sounds really silly, but when you're building something like this, you want it to be all really shiny. And then the second you put it together, you've got oil on it and you scuff the paint and all that sort of thing. And also one thing I found with this very high heat paint is it thins out very quickly. So I've come back 2 days later and it's thinner than it was, so it needs touching up. Anyway, really silly things, I know, but you want everything to be beautiful and you've got to remember it's an engine. But even with that in mind, I think it looks fantastic and it just looks so mean, like really mean. But of course, once it's in and situated, I probably will go around touching everything up and giving a few extra coats. Once we know it's sort of set in place, there's a few other areas like our distributor, which first of all, I think the cap should probably be black and the main body of it needs a good clean up and all that sort of thing, but that doesn't matter. That is just aesthetics. It is about functionality. On the subject of functionality, our fuel delivery system, I put the carb on. This is the carb that was originally on the racing car engine. But yeah, this is sort of just a placeholder and I sort of wanted to put something on top to make it look a bit more finished. And yeah, but what we've got coming for that is very exciting and very interesting. But for the sake of getting the engine bolted onto the car, getting it running, sort of doing our first very rapid oil change, that sort of thing, this hopefully should see us through, or carb very similar. And yeah, bugger me. But on that note, what is next? Well, aside from obviously little things like touching up the paint, thermostat, gaskets for the turbo setup, which you might see a small flash of. I won't put you guys through anything too boring like that. I will show you guys the results of our oil filter block off, but that's all sort of little bits that will be sectioned into upcoming episodes. But what are the big things that are next? Well, obviously we want to put this onto the gearbox, onto the chassis and get it running. But before we can do that, we need to finish the chassis. All of the hard work is done on the chassis. It needs painting, it needs the rust knocking off the back portion of suspension, same with the front suspension, and then we can put the incredibly exciting new suspension setup all the way around, which I don't think any of you will be expecting what is going on this car, but it's really cool. But then after those sort of key steps of rolling chassis, the suspension, etc., getting this bolted on, getting the body on, from that point onwards, things are just going to get crazy. There's going to be so much going on every single week. Everything from getting this running properly, tuning it with the new fuel delivery system, all the wiring involved in getting everything to communicate properly, obviously bodywork on the body. What else? I don't know. Everything. Interior, paint, electrics, just, yeah, it's going to be very busy. But yeah, I can't really believe how far this has all come in just a couple of months. This Nova concept has grown so far, yeah, beyond my expectations. And really it's thanks to you guys watching these episodes every single week and supporting the channel. And yeah, you're making it possible. So thank you very much. And with that in mind, if you enjoyed this episode, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, hitting the bell icon, hitting the hype button, which is this new thing. Try it all. That would be really, really helpful. By doing that, it allows me to continue making episodes like this more easily, allows more people to watch the videos, and yeah, we can just keep having all of this silly fun every week. If you'd like to support the channel further, I've linked my Patreon down in the description. Over on the Patreon, I've got loads of behind the scenes, early access stuff. The patrons get to see this sort of thing a few days before the YouTube episodes come out, so it's a great additional way to help out the channel. Another great way to support the channel is merchandise. Again, that is linked down below. Any money made goes into silly stuff like this. But regardless of all of that, I'm just so grateful that you're here watching. I really do appreciate it. I can't believe this is all happening. It really is bizarre and exciting. So thank you so much. And until next week, take care And I guess I'll see you then.